I was going to talk about Ballerina Farm today, whether or not somebody said anything about it, but somebody said something about it. So we are talking about Ballerina Farm. My name is Gina. I'm an author, editor, publishing professional. I help you make your writing better. I am not going to get into the nuances as to whose side you are on in this discussion of Ballerina Farm. And if you do not know what we are talking about, somehow just go Google Ballerina Farm The Times and read the article that was written in there about a very famous vlogger. I say famous because they used that word in the article. I had never heard of this person before, but it was a very well written article from a craft standpoint. Whether you agree with the implications of it or not, it was very well written. And I'm going to give you some examples so that you can see what I'm talking about. So again, I am not going to take sides on this. There are a lot of people who are diving into like the social aspects of this article, and that's what their platforms are for. That's not what I am doing here. I am looking at this just from a craft standpoint. This is a brilliant example of show don't tell. This writer had an agenda. This writer has a bias that they brought to this article that they really wanted you to understand. And if you've been watching my querying series, in which I say over and over again not to have themes in your query letter, it should just shine through. This is what I am talking about. This writer has a bias and they want you to know it, and it comes through clear as day without them ever saying it specifically. So I want to look here at the end. So she pauses, looking up at Daniel, who is now standing behind her. What do you think upsets us the most? She asks him. For whatever reason, I'm kind of numb to it, he says. So, and I'm going to give you several pieces here in a row. So he's standing behind her. She pauses. She looks to him for the answers to this question that the journalist has asked her. Is she a feminist? I feel like I'm a feminist. She stops herself. So we show this hesitation to use a specific word. When you combine that hesitation to use a specific word, the way that she second guesses herself, the way that she looks at her husband to answer a question that she's been asked. The journalist waits until they get a moment alone while Daniel is checking on animals, says, is this what you always wanted? No, she says. I mean, I was. Like, she pauses. So again, we're showing that hesitation. We have specifically said that Daniel is not standing here for this. My goal was New York City. I left home at 17, was so excited to get there. I loved the energy. I was going to be a ballerina. I was a good ballerina. She pauses again. So we have all these pauses, all these hesitations, all these self-interruptions. And then here she talks about the first few years of marriage were really hard. We gave up a lot, but we did have this vision, this dream, and Daniel interrupts, we still do. So she was saying, we used to have this dream. And he says, we still do. I ask what kind of sacrifices. I ask her, well, I gave up dance, which was hard, and you gave up a piece of yourself. He gave up his career ambitions. So these unspecified ambitions, they have been very specific to talk about what her ambitions were, what she gave up, what she sacrificed. The children appear to look after each other quite well. There's so many of them that they become a self-sustaining entity. Still, she gets so ill from exhaustion that she can't get out of bed for a week. And then the choice to use this picture, this like very shiny, happy, smiling, very healthy looking picture underneath the image of I'm so ill that I can't get out of bed for a week at a time. And then this is the showing. Like, see if you can see what this writer is doing here. So she gave birth to them all without pain relief, none at all. She shakes her head. Why? I don't know. I've just never loved taking it. She stops herself. Except with Martha, she was 2 weeks overdue. She was 10 pounds, and Daniel wasn't with me. She lowers her voice. Daniel is currently out of the room taking a phone call. So Daniel was not in the room for this birth. Daniel is not in the room for this conversation where she says, I got an epidural and it was an amazing experience. Where was Daniel? It was shipping day and he was manning the crew, but the epidural was kind of great. She pauses and smiles. It was kind of great. So again, the writer chose to ask that question at that time. The writer chose to describe the pauses, the hesitation, the self-interruptions. And then here, the last line of the last little paragraph here, the sequined gowns. She's also a beauty pageant winner. The sequined gowns, well, they used to be in this cupboard, but with all of her stuff and Daniel's and Henry's and all of the children, she names, the writer chose to name everybody else in the family. She doesn't say, and with the rest of the family stuff, which would have been more concise. She lists every single child. She doesn't list the mother in here. She lists every single child. The cupboard was so full there wasn't any room, so Daniel put them in the garage. Daniel put them in the garage. She made a deliberate choice. This writer made a choice to show the distance between what the wife experienced and what the husband did with those gowns. This is a masterclass on showing. And again, I'm not getting into whether or not you agree with the vlogger or the journalist or whose side of this you are on, because that's not actually really relevant to this conversation. For you as a writer, I want you to see the way that this journalist shows her bias. I believe it's a her. I should have checked that, but this journalist has a theme that they want you to take away. This journalist wants you to feel a certain way at the end of reading the article, and they accomplish that without ever saying out loud what it is they want you to feel. They show you all of these things. They choose to describe specific actions. They choose to describe conversations in a certain way. They choose their words on the page very, very carefully in order to convey this theme without ever telling you baldly what it is. It is a masterclass in showing versus telling.